Some people face adversity quietly, others choose to document it. Today's guest is Brad Miller, known online as at My Becker's Story, a creator and author who openly shares his journey living with Becker muscular dystrophy. Becker muscular dystrophy is a genetic progressive muscle wasting condition that causes gradual muscle weakness and often impacts mobility and endurance over time. It is a lifelong condition that requires constant physical, mental, and emotional adaptation. Through storytelling and reflection, Brad has chosen to share what many would keep private: the challenges, the mindset shifts, and the growth that comes from navigating life with a progressive condition. His work goes beyond awareness, it builds understanding. Today, we are going beyond the post and the pages. We are going into his journey, what he endured, how he had transformed it, and what it truly means to own your story instead of letting your circumstances define it. Welcome to Become the Victor, where we don't just talk about what someone went through, we talk about who they became because of it. And you can, and so Brad, for anyone who doesn't know your story or what is your story? How has this diagnosis transformed your life?
Well, I mean, it really started when I was a kid. I mean, I feel lucky that I was actually able to get diagnosed young because with Becker muscular dystrophy and some other types of, issues that people can have as a child, you might not get diagnosed. Some people wait till later in life, but so what it really started for me is when I was playing soccer and noticed I couldn't run or keep up with the other kids. And the other thing that stood out is when all the kids were trying to were climbing trees and jumping those little metal fences back in the day there. I just couldn't do it. So, I knew something was up. It didn't really concern me too much. I got creative, but yeah, it was at age 10 when I was diagnosed, and so it really started there.
Wow. And when you did you know you were going to have develop, the sense of loss in mobility as time progressed? Were you aware of that?
I was, and I'll be honest, when I was growing up, the access to the internet and Facebook groups to find out all the sort of scary stuff that can go on, I was shielded from because we didn't really have the internet, so I couldn't go look and become fearful.
Mhm.
Um, so it didn't really affect me at that point. I knew what it was, and I honestly tried my best to ignore it until it resulted in a work-related injury, and then that's when my journey of sharing my story started.
Wow. So you knew, you were having this you already knew you had Becker muscular dystrophy, and you already knew kind of what the foreseen future had to come. During those moments where you knew what was to come, how did that mentally, how did that mentally impact your life? Because, being able to do
Yeah.
something one day to the next, not being able to do it, it can take a mental toll.
Yeah, and I was lucky because the progression wasn't that fast. And one thing you need to know about Becker muscular dystrophy, it can affect everyone differently. Like there can be three guys all affected differently, one using a wheelchair, one not, one using a cane. So, it can affect everyone differently. And I guess it didn't concern me because I was just too busy being a child at the time.
Hmm.
Like I knew these things were going to happen. And, in the back of my head, I was thinking, maybe I'll never get married, maybe I'll never get a job, maybe this, maybe that. But actually, what helped me through a lot of the stuff was my writing. And, it actually first started when I was in school and I was living in New Brunswick at the time. That's not where I'm originally from, but I wasn't good at French. They were trying to teach you French. It's something you have to learn in Canada, but I just couldn't pick it up. So I was exempt from that. And which ended up with me during French class being in a computer room, and that's where I just started writing stories and stuff like that. And so that really influenced my writing, and then I got into music, and so I had luckily a lot of things to distract me, though things would happen, obviously, like falls and unexpected things. And I mean, I'm starting to notice more now, and since my 30s, a lot of the changes that are coming.
Hmm. And like when those moments happen, for someone that can relate to you, whether they have Becker muscular dystrophy or a lot of within the muscular dystrophy family, it's kind of similar, not, excuse me, not exactly the same, but similar.
Right.
For someone navigating a similar experience, what advice can you offer to them in terms of, it's like it's okay to lose, I don't want to say it's okay to lose this mobility, but what helps you mentally, prepare and adjust, to these circumstances, is not get so frustrated or have this progressiveness become a nuance to you.
Yeah, because it does get frustrating. Like I remember being in my late 20s and it was really affecting me, like just thinking about my future and, finances and some of the struggles you'll face. And I know a lot of people, I find that a lot of people these days try and ignore the struggle.
Yeah.
Lot of people, just want to do the highlight reel. But my advice to people is just face everything head on. And the other thing is, for some reason, I was able to accept it just because I was like, well, what can I do? There's nothing I can do to change it. And luckily, these days, for people who are recently diagnosed, there's a lot more support, a lot more mobility aids and stuff like that. So anybody who's currently going through a diagnosis or noticing the changes, it's something you have to accept. And I know a lot of people may turn to their faith, music, writing. Having a hobby is a great thing. And I know a lot of people with muscular dystrophy and, you know, other people have a lot more opportunity with starting the podcast and feeling a lot more supported. So I just suggest people share your story, be open and honest about it, and people will just show up and support you. And that's what's great about our community.
Yeah. It's so true, just be open and honest. And like you said, people want to support you and help you in the best to their ability, you know. And sometimes you just have to be willing to accept that kind of help and support from others.